Okay, welcome everyone to the May 19th, 2025 Weed Art and Healing number 7, Words and Rituals, Tending to the Wild of Our Creativity with Emilie Lygren. I'd like to share a little bit about our collective first. WEED is Women Eco Artists Dialogue, and we were founded in 1996. It's a volunteer-run, female-identified collective of visual artists, writers, curators, art historians, researchers, scientists, and others who are interested in highlighting the intersection of art and ecological issues. I'm Kasha Fries, and I am the current administrator for WEED. They're one employee. We will start this evening with a land acknowledgement and then start the session. WEED's office sits on the territory of Weechin, the ancestral unceded land of the Chochenyo-speaking Ohlone people, the successors of the sovereign Verona Band of Alameda County, near one of the largest shell mounds in the Bay Area. This land was and continues to be of great importance to the Muwekma Ohlone tribe and other familial descendants of the Verona Band. We recognize the Muwekma Ohlone tribe who are competing to become federally recognized, the Association of the Ramaytush Ohlone who are researching, revitalizing, and preserving the history and culture of the tribe, and the Confederated Villages of Lijan and the Sorgiate Land Trust who are working to return native land back to Indigenous stewardship. A little bit of housekeeping. We are recording this presentation. Please keep your audio muted unless you're speaking. We may mute you if there is extra noise. We will be recording one recording and then pausing and then starting again for the Q&A. So just so that you're aware that that's coming. With all that said, I'm so pleased to introduce our tonight's presenter, Emilie Lygren. She is a poet and educator whose work is grounded in curiosity and reverence. Through her work as a curriculum developer at the Lawrence Hall of Science, Emilie has also developed dozens of publications focused on nature journaling, outdoor science education, and social emotional learning. Her first book of poetry, What We Were Born For, was chosen for the Young People's Poet Laureate. Oh man, I messed that up. By the Young People's Poet Laureate as a monthly book pick for the Poetry Foundation in 2022. I'm going to admit someone. Her next book, Uncharted, is being published this fall by Wayfarer Books and is currently available on pre-order. If you'd like a deeper dive with Emilie, she is leading a course at San Francisco State University's Sierra Nevada campus. The course is called Gathering Stones, Writing Poetry by the River. It will be held June 22nd to the 27th, and we will put a link to that in the chat. Emilie has taught writing in a variety of contexts: classroom, research stations, graduate programs, parks, libraries, and beyond. She holds a BA in geology biology from Brown University and an MFA in creative writing from Maharishi International University. Currently, Emilie is a professor of creative writing and a poet in the schools and is at work on an anthology of poems on mental health for teens and youth. In this art and healing program, Emilie will share about the evolution of her practice, how her poetry supports her well-being, and how her teaching in the natural world has influenced her creative expression. I do want to say that this is my first time hosting a Zoom, so thank you for your patience with me as I am familiar with all the controls, but a little fumbly and nervous this evening, so thank you for your patience. Without any further ado, I would like to turn it over to Emilie Lygren.
Thanks so much, Kasha, for the generous introduction. Hi, everybody. It's nice to see you. If you've joined only recently, Zoom turns your camera off when you join the meeting, so if you are in a place where you want to turn your camera on, I welcome you to do that. Also fine if you don't want to. I'm going to start with a poem. Every day something new. Even on the drabbest of mornings, I hope for it. To notice atoms arranged differently. For something I've walked past 100 times to unfold itself anew. The way seed pods move up the stems of the toothwort, a hummingbird catching flies in a swift arc, new ferns greener with young growth. The pace of clanking flagpoles on a windy day, the purpling of spent shooting star flowers, even the sound of my own thoughts rubbing against the most familiar neighborhood street signs. Each day, a self I've never met before glows inside my ribs. It's there when I open myself to the sweet orb of attention. If I look, if I listen. I'm going to share in this workshop about my own relationship to creativity and invite you to think about yours. I think we're all creative beings, and I also think that this strange world we're in with all these screens and all these things that we need to do can get in the way of creativity, at least it can for me. And I'd love you to start this workshop thinking about a time in your life where you felt really connected to your creativity. A time in your life where you felt really connected to your creativity. It could be one small moment. It could be kind of like a longer phase. But to begin, find something to write with, pencil, pen, your computer if you want to, piece of paper, and just write about that moment. Kind of put yourself back in that moment where you felt really connected to your creativity. Maybe it's when you were a kid, maybe it's more recent. But just think about, what did it feel like in your body? What were you doing? And write about that for 3 or 4 minutes. You don't have to write in complete sentences. You can just jot down notes, but write about a time in your life where you felt deeply connected to your own creativity. We'll have 3 or 4 minutes. I'll keep time. Take about 1 more minute. start to come to a close for now. If you came across something that feels like it wants more of your attention, you're welcome to return to it later. And also, if you really get caught by something in this workshop, you're welcome to ignore me and keep writing. I know, like, for me, the muse strikes at unexpected times, and I think it's important to listen. So if you ever feel like what you're wanting to write down or create is more compelling than what I'm asking you to think about, then I invite you to listen to yourself. Is anyone willing to share just like one or two sentences about what you wrote about? When was this in your life? What were you doing? What was it like?
I can share. There's not sentences, they're more like fragments. So I'll read a couple lines, I guess. I was about 12, and this was camping in Taylor Park, Colorado. Um, Standing by the creek in Taylor Park, dancing with the river. The steps were just moving through me with no effort, no care, no worry about an audience. The tree is my partner, the creek as the musician.
Oh, that's beautiful. Thank you. Yeah, I love that image and that the kind of like what you spoke to too about the movement just coming through you without judgment. Yeah. What else? What else is another moment that someone, yeah, please go ahead, Sally.
Sally or Sandy?
Sally.
Okay.
Hi. Well, actually, when I'm deeply connected with my creativity, I'm so involved with what I'm doing that I'm not thinking, oh, I am deeply connected to my creativity. I'm only aware of it in hindsight after I resurface to day-to-day consciousness. But I will say that as I look back to the different things I've done, whether it's working with cut paper, bright colored paper, which is very what shall I say, healing right now with the craziness, or back in time to when I was making site-specific installations. I was very involved with what I was doing, but not thinking about
Mhm.
um, that conscious sentence.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks for sharing that, Sally. Yeah. What else? What's another reflection?
I have one from some years ago, putting together a rehearsal dinner that your parents were actually included in.
Mhm.
It's just sort of things I've jotted down. Vision coming together, excited. It's all working smooth, better than I imagined. Beauty, playfulness, sharing, love.
Mm, beautiful. Yeah, I love those little fragments. They're almost like a little mosaic of that moment in your life. Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah. Anyone else want to share before we kind of keep moving along? Wait time is always a little awkward on Zoom. There's a lot of research in classrooms about how if you wait for 3 seconds before calling on someone, more hands go up and the responses are more thoughtful, but it always feels like really awkward on Zoom. So just know we'll have some awkward silences, but we're gonna roll with it. Okay, we can circle back to these if we want to, but um, it's kind of cool that there's like, it seemed like there was a theme, at least in what people shared, of being really present, kind of like being lost in the process almost, not thinking about it too much, almost like a flow state or what I've heard people describe. And that's what I experience when I'm writing poetry. And it's something that I always experienced, even when I was a really little kid. Like I would be alone and I would just kind of be thinking of words. And it was this way of being really present with my surroundings. And that's what I think poetry is summoning presence with what's in front of us, with what we feel. So I'm going to share a couple poems that mean a lot to me that I kind of think about when I think about writing and being creative. The first one is by a poet named Aracelis Girmay, and I'm just obsessed with this poem right now. Would anyone be willing to read it out loud? It's Ars Poetica right here.
I'll go.
Great, thanks, Kate.
Ars Poetica. May the poems be the little snail's trail. Everywhere I go, every inch, quiet record of the foot's silver prayer. I lived once. Thank you. It was here.
Yeah, thanks so much, Kate. I just love that poem, like how simple it is. I lived once, thank you, it was here. Like, I think that's what we're all trying to say sometimes in our art, in our creativity, is like, I was here, I'm here. Whether it's tending a garden, whether it's cooking, whether it's writing, it's a way of being here, connecting with our sense of here-ness. This next poem is my favorite poem in the whole universe. It's called Valentine for Earnest Man. It's by Naomi Shihab Nye, who's my favorite poet in the whole universe. And I'll send out a poem with, or a document with all these poems in it, by the way, so you don't need to write everything down. Naomi wrote this poem. She does a lot of readings for high school students, and at one reading, a kid came up to her afterwards and said, "Here's my address, write me a poem." So this is what she sent to him in reply. "You can't order a poem like you order a taco. Walk up to the counter, say, 'I'd like two, please,' and expect it to be handed back to you on a shiny plate. Still, I like your spirit. Anyone who says, 'Here's my address, write me a poem,' deserves something in reply. So I'll tell you a secret instead. Poems hide. In the bottoms of our shoes they are sleeping. They are the shadows drifting across our ceilings the moment before we wake up. What we have to do is live in a way that lets us find them. Once I knew a man who gave his wife 2 skunks for a Valentine. He couldn't understand why she was crying. He thought they had such beautiful eyes. And he was serious. He was a serious man who lived in a serious way. Nothing was ugly just because the world said so. He really liked those skunks, so he reinvented them as Valentines, and they became beautiful, at least to him. And all the poems that had been hiding in the eyes of skunks for centuries crawled out and curled up at his feet. Maybe if we reinvent whatever our lives give us, we find poems. Check your garage, the odd sock in your drawer, the person you almost like but not quite, and let me know. I carry that poem with me all the time. It's something I think about. And I think it's about attention. It's about if we pay attention, if we reinvent what our lives give us. Yeah, it's so wonderful to do that. Oh yeah, and I see the note too, yes, about Naomi in San Antonio. Yeah, so carry that poem in your heart. You know, can we reinvent our lives? Another book that I'm really enjoying is called The Year I Stopped to Notice, by Miranda Keeling. She's a British poet, and she just had the intention of noticing these small snippets for a whole year and writing them down. So I'm going to read a few of them and then invite you to kind of look around your space that I imagine you're in a lot of the time and see if you can just write down some things that you notice. For me, that's the doorway into presence, into the here-ness of poetry and creativity, is noticing what's around me. Okay. So this is from The Year I Stopped to Notice. A door opens onto a dark alley, and a man in a chef's outfit steps out, does a series of rather elaborate yoga poses, then heads back in. A cat at the window of a house watches the rain fall outside, its large mustard yellow fur and eyes bright against the gray window. A little boy on the tube is so worried about his soft lion toy falling on the floor that he is saying to him, "Hold on tight, Sycamore Jones." In a churchyard, moss grows on gravestones. The last of the sun hits a leafless tree, and a pigeon settles with a small coo. I'll flip to read one in May. A breeze blows, fallen blossoms across the gray pavement. These are short, simple poems. And they're beautiful, like that last one, just a blossom on the gray pavement. It's something you could easily walk past. But I invite you now to turn your attention to where you are and just start noticing and write it down. And that's where most of my poems start, is noticing and writing it down. I'm noticing out the window my fava bean plants. The edges of the leaves are starting to brown. I'm noticing the wind trembling in the leaves. I'm noticing the peaches almost ripe. And then I'm going to notice my response to what I'm noticing. I notice the peaches are almost ripe, and I'm worried the squirrels are going to get them. So going back and forth between noticing what do you see outside around you and what do you notice in yourself. So let's take, maybe 5 minutes this time, and you're welcome to move around in your space. If you want to like spin around in your chair, try looking at things that you see all the time and see if you can notice something you've never noticed about it. The locking mechanism of the window, the particular shapes of the clouds right now. So take 5 minutes and write down as much as you can about what you notice right around you and what you notice doing your own noticing. I'll put that in chat. If you find yourself getting stuck, change your perspective. Look around. Look up at your ceiling. Look down at the floor. Start to wrap it up. If you'd like to, you're welcome to type something into chat, just one line that you wrote. Start to bring your attention back unless you're deciding to ignore me and keep writing, which I support. Oh, these are so great. Orange poppy petals on gray gravel, patterned with coconut trees and a history of love. Shadow of the plant dancing across the light switch. It is the golden hour, and one last shaft of light has found its way through my back door, through the leaves, to shine on my face. I know it will be gone in a moment or two, a fleeting glimmer before the sun settles behind the mountains and fills the sky with mauve and gold. I notice the arc of the lamp. It's so lovely, and I often bump it if I'm not careful. There's so much richness in this, and all these pieces, all these lines. The wonder of the everyday is kind of here knocking at us, waiting to be noticed if we give it our attention. So I shared this first exercise because it's always where I go if I'm stuck. It's always where I go if I don't know how to be creative. I can always start noticing. There's always something to notice. Yeah, the stamen of the peonies are curry colored. Yeah, so much to notice. What was that like for people? Is anyone willing to share kind of what your experience of noticing was like for you?
It felt like a nice little break, honestly, just to
Mhm.
like not worry about 1,000 things and just feel like my job right now. I'm sure that the pattern of the shadow on my light switch happens all the time, and I don't know that I've ever noticed it before.
Mhm.
So yeah.
Sandy, you said centering in the chat. This is a great anti-anxiety technique. Like I know I've been taught to say things out loud. You can do also kind of like, here are 3 colors I notice, here are 4 shapes that I notice. So it can be a helpful technique for that, for kind of coming to present. Um, yeah, so you can keep returning to that. You can do it at the bus stop. It's like something I try to remind myself to do instead of scrolling on my phone when I'm waiting for something, is just write down these little snatches of things. And if you keep doing it, there's a lot there. Yeah, Luana says it's a lot like plein air painting, just sitting and looking and seeing what is there. Yeah, it's a way to do that with words. So I invite you to keep doing that when it feels good to you. And there's a lot there. See what else happens, see what else arises in you when you notice. I remember being really compelled during like the early days of the pandemic of like looking at the paper hinges of my egg cartons and being like, wow, this is really amazing. Like, who made this up? And kind of, there's lots of marvels around us. Sometimes when I'm like really down on myself for, maybe not having the house as organized as I would like it, I try to look around as if it were a museum that someone else made and kind of be like, wow, look at all that dust in that corner. Like, that's so fascinating. I wonder why it's collecting there. So doing like a museum tour of your own space can be a way to just kind of shake up that noticing process a little bit. So yeah, that's my first piece of wisdom, is just attention is powerful. What we pay attention to is where, what grows in our life. So pay attention, look around, write stuff down. Hi, Maxine. So glad you're with us. Welcome. You can jump right in. We're just talking about noticing and attention. And my second piece of wisdom is about creativity is to notice what gets in your way. I know I want to be more creative than I am. I'm often kind of like interrupted in my creative process. For me, it's often about feeling like I need to do it right, or, like be good enough, or, kind of like a focus on product over process. And that can get in the way for me. I'm going to share a poem about kind of some ways that that shows up for me. So I just invite you to reflect for a moment. What gets in your way creatively? Kind of what interrupts you when you want to make something? This poem was in my first book, titled "What We Were Born For." It starts off with a quote that Naomi Shihab Nye told me that William Stafford said to her, which is, "Try to write a bad poem before breakfast." William Stafford famously wrote every morning, and his son, Kim Stafford, I'll tell you that story after the poem. Okay. A deeper pretending. Try to write a bad poem before breakfast. William Stafford, as quoted by Naomi Shihab Nye. Okay, I'll try, but I have never been much good at being bad. No, it's not like that. It's not that I am good at everything or think I am. It is a deeper pretending, a tacit avoidance of things not yet known or learned, a nodding along sometimes when people talk about that book I should have read by now. It started early. You're so quiet, they told me, so good at knowing things, so smart, that's good. They told me so often it's all I thought I was, held up a trick mirror to show only one edge of my humanity. Why do we tell children they are anything? I am still unraveling it, the tight ball formed around that one kernel of identity, like today, unsure of every word here, catching myself thinking I should get better at being bad before doing it in front of anybody. Um, yeah, it's like I was told I was smart a lot when I was a kid, and I was really grateful for it at the time. I like could see people were seeing me and seeing what I brought, but um it also kind of led to this rigidity of I felt like I needed to keep being good at things, because that's what I was getting attention for, and it really it's something I struggled with until I was an adult. It's something I feel like I've gotten better at is being bad at things, but when I'm having a hard time finding my way into a poem, it's often that ghost kind of knocking on my door, feeling like I need to do a good job. So take a moment and just write a little bit. Was there something that you were told you were or weren't as a kid, and that still interrupts you? I think that can often happen. Being told we're bad at something, being told we're not, like not a writer, not a drawer. Or is it like something in your current life that interrupts your creativity? I know for me, it's often like logistics, that are, like get in my way. And just write for a moment, like not very long, but just write one or two words. What's something that gets in your way? What interrupts you when you're trying to be creative? And I invite you slowly to look around your space and see if there's a physical object that kind of represents what gets in the way for you creatively. You might have several things that get in your way. I know I do. Or maybe you don't. Maybe you only have one. Yeah, okay, I see a cell phone, totally. Yeah. I was kind of like what caught my eye is this little eraser cap, and I kind of think it represents this idea of like, um, yeah, like this idea about being good, doing it right, kind of like um, capping my eraser, kind of trusting and moving forward. So take a moment and just look around. Is there something that represents what gets in your way? It could be weird. It could be like a random connection. Don't overthink it. Just kind of pick up something. Yeah. And if anyone wants to hold it up and tell us about it. Kate, you're holding a stapler. Are you willing to say?
Yeah, I guess what really came to mind is feeling like it should be something like practical and useful. And, poetry, it's like, well, why are you or making art? Oh, and this is just like such a utilitarian object.
Yeah.
which
thanks
I'm
for-
not utilitarian.
Yeah. Does anyone relate to that kind of feeling like when you want to make something like art or poetry, it's like, oh, I should be doing something practical. I should be doing something. Yeah. I'm seeing Deb nod. Yeah. Anyone else have an object they're willing to share? Yeah, I'm seeing Kamala says my computer technology. Yeah, I really feel that. Yeah. Yeah, Deb, tell us about what you have.
It's my planner with full of sticky notes of to-do lists of things that I started using sticky notes so I could just keep moving them around because there were too many for the little lines in the planner. And yeah, what Kate said, that voice that says this should be what you're doing. It's more rational, logical. It's what you need to be doing, not going out into the nature journal and the backyard. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyone else have an object? No pressure if you don't want to share, but yeah, Kasha, what you got?
I just have a plastic bag, and it does seem like anytime I want to sit down in stillness, there's this like, well, there are things I need to get, like things I need to get. Like I should be going and getting toilet paper, going and getting cat food, going and getting, you know, so I looked around and the bag seemed really representative of that.
Yeah, this idea that like we need something to begin. Yeah.
Yeah, often, yeah, even paints. Okay, let me go get paints. Let me go get the right brush.
Yeah, Luana, I'm seeing, yeah, Google Calendar, schedule and to-do list, double whammy. Maxine, thanks for sharing. Salt shaker represents the fear that your work could always be more. Yeah, adding more. I resonate with that too. Yeah. If you don't have a physical object, for this next little bit of the exercise, I invite you to find something to hold that's like a representation. I don't know what a physical representation of a Google Calendar would be, or a computer, maybe holding the computer, but I'm going to read another piece, and I invite you to just hold your object and just kind of notice what's it like to hold this thing that can get in your way. This poem is also from my first book. It's called Clutch. Where soil is swept away, or a tree tips over, notice how the roots still clutch rocks. Touch the tangled arms wrapped around boulders. Feel how matter shapes itself to stone. Think how we pick up and mold ourselves to what is unyielding. Notice what you were given to grow against, the hard things you still grasp, what you might hope to set down. I think so much of kind of being in relationship with creativity and with ourselves is knowing what to try to set down. And maybe we can't set it down forever. Maybe it doesn't stay away forever, but sometimes I take my computer and I put it in my closet before I write. And it's like this physical act of kind of creating a boundary of setting down my, logistics. So hold your object. And then when you're ready, physically set it down. And you can just kind of say, like, no thanks right now. I don't need you right now, whatever that is, whether it's your technology, whether it's an expectation of yourself. And that's a practice you can go back to too, is kind of like, I think like putting things in our bodies is really helpful. Having like a ritual. I have a little ritual I do in the morning before I write, where I kind of like look up at the sky and think about like asking the world, like, for permission. Can I pay attention to you? Can I write with you? Having a physical thing that I do helps kind of put it in me, and maybe setting something down can be that for you, kind of like holding it and setting it down and saying like, okay, that's not what I'm doing right now. Yeah. Any brief reflections on what that was like to kind of think about something that gets in your way?
I appreciated hearing the common themes with
Mhm.
everybody. You know, I think it's easy to get in my head and say, you know, everybody else is painting and writing and you're worried about your overwhelming to-do list. But, you know, it's like I realized that's pretty much a somewhat similar theme amongst what we all shared here.
Yeah. Yeah, thanks for that, Deb. Yeah, I definitely feel less alone. Also feeling like that's something that I find myself falling into as well. Yeah. Um, Kasha, I forgot to ask you about this, so you can tell me it's not possible, but I'm wondering if we could put folks into breakout rooms in a couple minutes for just like a short amount of time, which I can do if you make me host.
Yeah, let me make you host because I
Okay.
haven't done that recently.
Great. Yeah. So I'm gonna put you all in a breakout room. I know some people say that they're in a place where they can't, kind of be off camera or talking, which is totally fine. So if you're in a place where you can't be put in a breakout room, if you can just let me know in chat and I won't put you in one. Um, and if you're willing to be in a breakout room, we'll just do some one-on-one sharing a little bit. And I would love for you to share about how you do want to be in relationship to your creativity. Um, just kind of you'll each have about 2.5 minutes to share. What do you hope for yourself? Are there things that you want to make that you're not making? Are there feelings you want to have when you're creating? Kind of like, what are your goals and hopes for yourself? So you'll each have about 2.5 minutes to share. Um, and yeah, I will invite you to think about just kind of what do you want? What do you want from that? Yeah, Kosh.
And just so you know, Luana has to step away. She sent me
Yeah.
a direct message.
Okay, great. Yeah, so I will. Um, I'm going to put all the people who can't be in a breakout room into room 1, so you can just ignore your invitation to join. But the rest of you, I'll put you in a breakout room. If you're in a breakout room and no one's there talking to you, come back to the main room and we will chat with you. I'll chat with you. So I'll tell you when to switch, 2.5 minutes each. Share about how you do want to be in your relationship to your creativity. What do you want to do? What do you want to be? How do you want to do it? If you need help finding your way to your breakout room, you can let me know. Sandy, are you able to join a breakout room or do you need help?
Where do I join?
It should be like a little invitation that pops up on your Zoom computer.
Okay. Looking. Am I in the breakout room now?
No, not yet, but that's okay. Why don't you and Kasha talk and I'll go talk to the person who's in your room if you and Kasha are down to chat.
Yeah, absolutely.
Are we
Glad
in a
to chat,
breakout room
Sandy.
now? Are you and I in a breakout room, Kasha?
We will be, yeah. Emily just went over to join Camilla, so it's you and me.
You and me, baby?
Yeah, it's us. Wait, and the prompt is how do we
What do
want
we want? Yeah.
our relationship to creativity? Yeah.
My creativity is gardening and cooking and entertaining. I would like to do more, maybe a fine art creativity, but that obstacle for me is a little bit of perfectionism. So I'm always a little bit insecure putting pencil to paper, where the other areas I feel very confident.
Hmm.
So sort of I feel like there's like a stumbling thing whenever I actually am putting a brush to a canvas or paper and pencils, which I
Does
don't.
it does
I
it
don't.
feel like perfectionism
It
or
does feel like perfectionism, but the other, the other outlets, the gardening and the cooking and entertaining, it doesn't feel that way at all. It feels much more free and playful.
Hmm.
Huh.
Yeah, and are you able to be creative and as you're like arranging a party or out
Oh,
in the garden?
oh, absolutely. Yeah, very much so. And I'm just thinking as we speak, um, my father was an architect student, although he didn't pursue it, but he was the kind of person that could pick up a pencil and doodle on a napkin and it looked like it was frameable. And then my husband's an architect and he can do the same exact thing. So maybe there's a little, I feel sort of like a little imposter syndrome that, splashes of color and wiggly lines aren't the same as a realistic rendering.
I can see that. Yeah. Actually, I dated an architect for a while and we were on a trip in India and I had brought my notebook because I wanted to sketch as we were doing tours and he was like, just give it to me. And he like sketched something out really quickly and like you're like, let's keep going. And I think it was at that point that I knew we weren't gonna last long term.
Oh, for God's sake, does that look like the Taj Mahal to you? Here, give it to me.
Oh, exactly, exactly. Yeah.
Well, sort of interesting because I mean, I'm very confident in all the other areas. I love doing flower arranging. I used to do a lot of sewing. So I mean, all those kind of craft things, but not necessarily the fine art.
Hmm. Yeah. Some of those things are starting to be considered fine arts, finally getting where their due, their recognition in the art world.
Um,
Yeah.
so I mean, I enjoy them so much. It's so much fun for me to do that.
Um, is there something that opens up for you with poetry?
I enjoy reading poetry, but I've never actually thought of writing poetry.
Oh.
Do you write poetry?
Um, I used to. I had a creative writing uh degree and then I went into marketing and I felt like um it just it felt like I was spending all day using my words for I was working for a hospital, so it was for a good purpose, helping educate people about services in the hospital, but it just drained any creative impulse out of writing for me. And I've been to a couple of Emilie's workshops now, and her concept of bringing attention to the moment and then reflecting on, like, noticing how you're reacting to that has been really, really helpful for me in all aspects of creativity. Like, I'm able to, um, instead of just wanting to kind of distract myself by like doing the dishes or watching TV or like actually like come very grounded in the moment and either draw or start to write and that's it's just really joyful for me to have found that tool as part of what I enjoy about uh, Emily's poetry is that it reminds me of that.
Well, it's something that seems like for all facets of your life, it would be meaningful. That sort
That's
of
such a
ground.
good point.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Yeah. Yeah, I do feel like working in the hospital, like even though really there was not, I wasn't in the emergency room, but there were always like urgent things like let's put an event together, let's get a newsletter out, like, and it just always felt like I was being pulled in a million different directions. So it's almost like my brain has gotten used to that and unaccustomed to like sitting and noticing.
I retired about a year ago, and I worked as a personal assistant, and my employer was in Southern California and I was in Northern California. So every other week I flew down there on Monday and flew home on Friday every other week.
Wow.
I noticed once I retired, it's sort of like the middle of the week, I'd be like, oh, I have to get this, I have to get this done, I have to get this done. I'm going to be at the airport. Oh no, I'm not going to be at the airport. So it was like this kind of detoxing of coming back, which, it takes a while. I think there's some muscle memory.
Yeah, you're working that out of your system.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was sort of an amusing enlightenment. Oh, there she is. Okay.
Hi, everybody. I hope you
We're
had
back.
some good conversations.
Yes.
Yeah, and so I've done this in a workshop before, and it's something I've come to really enjoy. I have this like little bowl on my desk. It's a beautiful ceramic bowl with some rocks in it. And when I kind of like have a learning or a piece of wisdom for myself, I write it down on a little piece of paper as like a little mantra and something I can kind of pick up and think about and go back to. So like a couple right now, growth is not linear. I think sometimes I find myself catching myself thinking like, oh, I just like keep growing and getting better at everything. And that's not actually how, growth works. Another one that I say to myself a lot recently is one of the many. When I catch myself feeling competitive with other poets, with other people, I remind myself I don't want to be the best. I want to be one of many amazing people. Um, so I invite you to kind of like take what your hopes are for yourself creatively and try to distill it down to a little mantra, a short phrase, maybe half a sentence, a whole sentence, a couple examples that people have done in previous classes. One person's was shriek with joy. Um, Another person's was make things without worrying about it. A variation on that was make shit because it's fun. Another was slow down, pause, feel. So it could be a big variation, but just kind of listen to your heart um, and see what wisdom you have for yourself. I think we all have a lot of wisdom for ourselves. And think about that intention that you just shared with your witness in your breakout room and try to come up with a short phrase, a little mantra, a creativity mantra, and please share it in chat when you have it and you can take your time. My current one is one of the many. They're coming to mind quickly for some people, but they might take a little while for others, so take your time, don't rush. These would make some great bumper stickers. I love these. Thank you all so much for sharing them. I now have kind of a silly task for you. I was doing a Yeah. Oh, I kind of want to, yeah, actually, I want people to read them only if they want to. So if you want to unmute yourself and read yours, please do. I would love to hear them in your voices. Start us off, Kate, if you want to.
You're allowed to have fun.
Dancing origami.
Be present, listen, feel, look more closely.
Create to be calm.
Worry less, dance more. And I also had another one. Creation is like sending a letter to yourself.
Hmm.
Gentle, gentle.
Yeah. Um, yeah, these are so great. Thank you. I was in a life coaching course and community for a while and was doing like a life coaching like practice session with someone at my house. And I was talking about kind of like struggling to remind myself of these moments of my past that had been really joyful and fun. And um, I'll never forget what he did. He like asked me about a few of them, and then he wrote them down, just like a short phrase on little pieces of paper, and then he hid them all over my house. So I would be like doing something completely unrelated and open a drawer and see this little phrase that like reminded me of something I wanted to be reminded of. Um, so take a couple minutes and write down your phrase. You could write it a couple times. You could write it more than once on little slips of paper and rip them up or cut them. And then go hide them from yourself somewhere in your house, somewhere kind of like, I promise you'll forget and come across it. And it's going to be really surprising and fun when that happens. So take a minute and go hide some wisdom for yourself somewhere nearby.
I'm so inspired by some of these that I am going to be hiding yours around my house as well, just so y'all know.
Oh, look at that puppy. Um, If you'd like to, you can also drop your email in the chat and I will email your message to you at some undisclosed future date. So you'll get a random email on a random day at a random time as a reminder. Okay. I want to do one more little writing exercise before we um, pause for questions and wrapping up. If you haven't had the chance to hide your paper from yourself, you can do that after we wrap up our class. But I think one of the things that I love most about being an outdoor educator and a poet is I think nature gives us so much. There's so much wisdom in how everything grows, everything is outside. And I find myself just really often looking to the things around me, the plants, the air, the wind, for wisdom on how to live my life. Um, I'll read a couple poems, some by me and some by others that kind of use things in nature as inspiration for how we want to show up. This poem is called What My Friends Say by Carolyn Chilton Casas. Creek says find your own way, no matter the dams constructed attempting to steer your course. You alone know where you are heading. Trees say life is long. While reaching for the sky, don't forget your roots. Moon says I'm here lighting your way even on the darkest of nights. Sun says you can count on me to always return. Rain says there'll be eternal growth, green shoots in the spring, leading to summer's harvest. Life says you came to this place with a chosen purpose. We'll help you remember what it is. Try to relax, enjoy, not to worry. This is all for you. So when you write, you can kind of keep riffing on this list. You know, this says this, my roses say this, my pen says this. Think about, you know, what wisdom there is. Let's see, I'll do this one. Chrysalis. One day, the caterpillar forms a chrysalis, waits a while, becomes a butterfly. They told us this much, told us to wait for chitin to split, for the emergence of dazzling colors and pumping wings, but they never talked about what really happened inside, how the caterpillar's whole body dissolves, how for a time there is nothing but soupy liquid, butterfly goo, formless but for the rigid purse holding it in midair. And no one told us either that when the caterpillar was born, while it grew and crawled along, a few cells called imaginal already held instructions for what to build when it came time for another body. Here, the shining eye, the scaled wings. Let me remind you of the power of sticking around. If you feel shapeless and scared, imagine yourself in that tiny, thin-walled shell, whistling in the dark, some small part of you already knowing the way. I wrote that poem to go on the wall of a meditation room in a mental health center for youth and teens called the Ohana Center in Monterey, California. And I thought about what I might would have wanted to hear when I was a teen and kind of struggling. And this concept of butterfly goo has become so useful for me, kind of when I'm in phases of change and I'm not the old thing anymore and I'm not the new thing yet either. I'm goo. I'm like a big pile of goo and it's really uncomfortable, but reminding myself that I'm goo eases the pressure on myself. It's like, oh, okay, I'm not fully baked yet. It's fine. I'm goo. I'm going to be something else eventually, even if I don't know what it is. So that's an example of a concept, something in nature that's helped me. I'll read one more that kind of plays off of that by Santa Cruz poet Chopsy Gut. Advice from the sky. Look inside you when you are struggling. Every cell in your body emits light. May Burson Rug. I'm going to ask someone who speaks German how to pronounce that. But we are star people. Points of light radiate out through our hands, our fingers, our eyes. Sometimes we feel dark matter collapsing into us, and we fall and fall into it. There are days when our understanding is so far behind, like the lag of starlight, which could explain the mishaps of humanity. Instant comprehension, awe, is what we need to remind us how to be together in the dark. When dark matter pours in, call on these beings of light, these stars you are made of. So write for a little bit about something in nature that has something to say to you that can help you live your life. And it doesn't have to be a poem. It could just be some notes. You could do what the first poem did and make a big list of things, you know, like the oak says this, the dog says this. Or you could kind of pick one thing, a tree out your window that's turning towards the light, something particular around you, and just write some notes about what wisdom does it have to offer you. And that's kind of my last piece of wisdom for you is look around you for inspiration. There's so much to look for. So take just a couple minutes and write about something that has some wisdom to offer you. You could write from its perspective, talking to you. You could talk to it. And if you're not sure where to start, go back to our first exercise. Just notice. Just notice. Start by just noticing and writing down. Take about a minute or so to wrap it up. Would anyone like to read something? A line or two from what you wrote?
Cloud growing, building, full of the potential for rain. Something approaching, both quenching and uncomfortable. But right now, the sun still shines.
I love that. Thank you.
Bamboo making knocking sounds, flexible, while Louis snoring softly at my side.
Beautiful image. I remember that bamboo.
I
I asked what the fava plants have to say.
Hmm.
What do the fava plants have to say? We are abundant. Our nutrition takes many shapes. Rooted, we wildly chase the sun.
Thank you. Anyone else? No pressure.
I'll just share the first line. The coyote looked lonely, not so vicious as they make him out to be on next door.
Yeah, thanks, Maxine. There's a story there. Yeah. Well, I'm so grateful to have spent this time with you all. I appreciate your participation, your sharing. Yeah, it always fills me to just be in conversation about creativity. I hope this has offered something to kind of tuck in your pocket and take with you, or hide in your house and stumble across, as the case may be. We'll have a little time for questions before we close, if anyone has questions. Thanks for posting that, Kasha. Yeah, I'm really excited to be teaching a 5-day class in the Sierra Nevada mountains this summer, where we'll be doing a lot like this with poetry, with creativity, at a really beautiful site up there by the river, with also plenty of time for hiking and napping and adventuring and relaxing. So I would love to see you there. If that's something that you are excited about, you can let me know and ask questions. And I'll also share my link to join my mailing list. That's kind of the best way to find out about what I'm up to. I share a poem about once a month, as well as just kind of announcements about events coming up, and I would love to stay in touch with you.
And Weed's procedure is to stop the recording and then restart for Q&A. So I'm just going to stop for a moment.